Empress and The Geek, Marriage and Movies. I'm Lucinda, this is Ian, I am the Empress, he is the Geek, and today we will be reviewing
The Iron Claw.
Now, Ian and I, if you follow my TikTok, Primal Empress, are both huge wrestling fans as well as being huge movie fans. So we were incredibly excited to see this film, and that's why this film is the first one that we will be reviewing on YouTube. What did you think of the film?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the review scores first. We've got a score from Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's 88%. We've got The Independent giving it 4 out of 5.
And IMDb gave it 8.1 out of 10. But if you like a movie, you like a movie. It doesn't really matter what the critics think. What did you think?
I really enjoyed this.
Me too. I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely got a rewatch value to it. You know, we're massive wrestling fans, and the story of the Von Erichs is just integral.
And it's legendary within wrestling.
Absolutely legendary. I mean, it was right on that cusp of that period of professional wrestling where they were making the transition onto TV in the 80s, uniting all the territories in the United States, and it's just an incredible period of time with some massive characters that you'll meet along the way in the movie.
Now, you don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy this movie. It is a fantastic movie. If you like wrestling, you are going to love this movie. If you know about the Von Erichs family, then you will know the tragic story. And the film definitely captures some of that, but they have kind of moderated the truth purely for pacing, and also it's already heartbreaking, the movie version. The real story is a lot more tragic and a lot darker. So I think people are going to enjoy this film in general. There is one draw to this film that I think is going to bring in an audience who wouldn't necessarily go to see a wrestling movie or a sports movie, and that element is Zac Efron. Now, we both like Zac Efron, but for completely different reasons. Why do you like Zac Efron?
The only thing I've ever seen Zac in is the story of Ted Bundy, Extremely Wicked. You know, that was a really good movie.
Now, I had to take you down a bit of a Zac Efron history route and teach him all about High School Musical and The Greatest Showman, and there's more musicals that he's in. Ian doesn't like musicals. I love musicals. And I actually am incredibly impressed with Zac's acting in this, because if you do know the Von Erichs and the history, Kevin Von Erich, who Zac Efron plays, is a very straight-laced, very sort of slow. He wasn't a ring guy. He wasn't a mic guy. He's a technical wrestler.
Performer, yeah.
Very stoic. Not necessarily, you know, the bright lights of wrestling, but the getting down and dirty. And I wasn't sure that Zac Efron could play that, but he does such a good job, doesn't he?
And what a physical transformation
Wow.
he went through to get him to the point where he could play a professional wrestler. I think 15 pounds worth of
pure
muscle put on.
His body is incredible, and it almost doesn't look real. It looks like his head has been superimposed onto some WWE guy's body. Absolutely incredible. And I wonder whether Zac is actually a wrestling fan, or how he sort of came to get into this movie, because I do know that he starred in a movie with The Rock.
He did.
Baywatch,
yes. I've not seen that movie, but obviously there's an existing relationship there between Zac and The Rock.
And obviously The Rock comes from WWE. Well, we don't talk about WWE at the moment, there's a bit of a dark cloud. But actually, the WWE doesn't have anything to do with this movie. Actually, a couple of the producers are in your favourite wrestling promotion.
Executive producer is MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, who most recently has been the AEW World Champion.
What does AEW stand for?
All Elite Wrestling.
Oh, and so you're Team AEW. I'm Team WWE, but we can't really talk about them at the moment. But what's interesting, and I wonder whether what's happening in the WWE at the moment is a good or a bad thing for this movie, or this movie is a good or bad thing for the WWE. It's just, I know it's a coincidence that this has come out at the same time as all the allegations against the WWE, but
yeah,
you don't often get a wrestling movie.
You don't, and anything that kind of draws eyes to the world of professional wrestling it is going to be a positive thing, particularly when it comes to this movie, because you don't have to be a wrestling fan to see this movie.
It's a great movie.
It's such a tragic story. It borders on a Greek tragedy.
Oh, it's absolutely a Greek tragedy. I mean, even if you don't like wrestling, this is a movie about a family who go through all of the things that a family goes through, particularly if they're working together, but then the love and the loss that a family experiences. And this family, wow, they experience some tragedy. So, spoiler alert, you'll probably already know this, but basically the Von Erichs were a wrestling family. The patriarch, the dad, Fritz von Erich, had 6 sons. 5 of them died. So the first son, Jack, I believe his name was, he died in childhood, but 4 of his sons died in some way because of wrestling, one way or another. Now, if you don't know this about professional wrestling, these athletes put their bodies on the line. They live with pain every day, and it's no secret that most wrestlers have used substances of one kind or another, and unfortunately it doesn't cover it very much in this film.
There are elements of it. It is a Disney-fied version.
Yeah.
I don't think they
mention... It needs to be. It's already dark.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, and I don't think they mention substance abuse, particularly around David's death.
No.
But they definitely mention Kerry, who lost part of his leg and ended up addicted to painkillers. So there was definitely some substance abuse there.
Now, in the real life, the 3 of the Von Erich brothers actually unalived themselves, but they only showed 2 of those deaths in the film. In fact, one brother, the youngest brother, Chris, he was cut out of the film completely. His character doesn't exist in the film, which I know that Kevin Von Erich in real life has said that was a bit of a shame. He understood why they did that, but I don't think we could have taken another death, another suicide, but unfortunately in real life that is what happened. Now, the film.
The film itself, yeah, because we talked a lot about wrestling.
Do you know what it reminded me of a little bit?
What did it remind you of?
It's kind of Forrest Gump-esque, and I think maybe because it's set in that kind of period of time, sort of 80s, late 70s, 80s. Also, that sort of it's set in Texas. Now, the Von Erich family basically were Texas's answer to the Jonas Brothers in the 80s. They were huge in professional wrestling, but more than that, they were huge in Texas. And it's got that southern feel.
Well, I mean, the
whole
movie,
Christian boys.
The whole movie was shot in Louisiana, so the whole thing it has that south Southern American charm to it, and right from the get-go, you're kind of introduced to Fritz von Erich adopting that kind of traditional patriarchal leadership of his family. Immediately, he's out church-going, religiously pious, and he's creating this super team of his progeny. To be these warriors for God in the ring, and he takes responsibility for sort of coaching and training his kids from
he
a
was
very
tough.
young age.
He was very tough. He was too tough, but he is expertly portrayed by Holt how do you say it?
I honestly don't know.
McCallany. We loved him in Mindhunter. We want another series of Mindhunter. Please, come on. And it just shows what a good actor he is, because in Mindhunter I loved him, But in this movie, I did not like him at all.
No. Fritz von Erich, right from the get-go, he is portrayed as the man in charge. He's, you know, the opening scene is of him, you know, instructing his wife that he's just bought them a new car and that he's going to take them right to the top within the NWO. He's going to be the world heavyweight champion. But obviously all of that doesn't happen. Fritz never makes it to the top.
But his sons do.
And you can tell.
He pushes them. And it's that very old school style of parenting that, quite frankly, is borderline illegal now.
Now, we all know Carrie's my favorite, then Kev, then David, then Mike. But the rankings can always change.
But yeah, I think Zac Efron did a great job. I think Holt McCallany did a great job. Standout star of this movie for me personally was Jeremy Allen White, who I had never seen before. I'd never heard of him. Apparently he's in a TV show that everybody absolutely loves. I don't know what that TV show is called, but I will be watching it. And I just thought he was incredible. I thought he was a fantastic character. He portrayed Kerry really, really well, but also, doesn't he look like Gene Wilder?
He does look like Gene Wilder, and, you know, a little casting tip for anyone looking to do a story about Gene Wilder's life. You know, give this chap a call, because he does a great job.
He was fantastic. And I also was happy to see Maura Tierney as the mum Doris. She was in ER. She was my favourite character in ER. And again, that very old-fashioned Christian Texas woman. You know, I may be your mother, but I'm not here to be any kind of emotional support. Very stoic.
I think she even comments in some of the funeral scenes that she's just not allowed to cry whilst burying one of her sons.
Not allowed to cry. And when her children come to her to talk to her, she's like, why are you talking to me? That's what you've got brothers for. That very old-fashioned.
Absolutely.
That I can absolutely imagine was the parenting. I know that Kevin Von Erich has said that he didn't really like how his dad was portrayed, but if you know anything about the Von Erich family, I actually think they made him nicer than he probably was. There's a theme throughout this film about the curse of the Von Erichs, and that stems back to, obviously, by the time his sons were wrestling, Fritz was a Christian, and he was very, what's the word? He was a devout Christian.
He was a born-again Christian.
Which they're always fear-mongering. But he had previously portrayed a Nazi. His wrestling character was a Nazi. And his surname wasn't actually Von Erich. Von Erich was his ring name. And he believed that he had this curse because he played a Nazi, or that's what I'm led to believe is the curse of the Von Erichs. But there's definitely something that just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. This film made me cry. It affected me for hours afterwards, and I think part of that is because if you are a wrestling fan at the moment, there's a very, very dark cloud, but actually this film reminds you that there has always been a dark cloud in wrestling, because they are performing to such a high level, they're putting their bodies on the line. There is this underbelly that's very dark in wrestling where, you know, they are just pumping themselves full of growth hormones, steroids, painkillers, just so that they can perform, and it definitely touches on that. It doesn't go into it as deeply as the real story was, because pretty much all of the brothers had some kind of issue with substance misuse and got in trouble with the police because of it. But in general, I thought it was fantastic. I loved the wrestling scenes. If you know anything about wrestling, then you will know Chavo Guerrero Jr. He was the wrestling coordinator. And what was interesting about this, and you can tell, I didn't know this when I saw it, but once I found out how they did the wrestling scenes afterwards, it really makes sense, because it really does look like a match, doesn't it? You know, I never know how they're going to film these things, and basically Chavo Guerrero had taught them how to wrestle, and then instead of just doing scene for scene, he actually just made them do a match, and that's how they filmed the scene, and it really had that. You had
the crowd in the background as well cheering them on, and it gave it that authentic feel. Absolutely incredible stuff. I mean, just a quick shout out to Harris Dickinson, who played David, who was kind of a wrestling prodigy at the time. You know, he was light years ahead of his brothers, particularly on the mic. And you know, he went off to Japan to bring the Von Erich name out to a wider audience, and tragically met his end whilst he was out there in a hotel room. Again, under suspicious circumstances. There's been talk of substance abuse in David's case as well.
But that's not covered in the film.
It's not covered in the film, and it's very much put down to an intestinal condition that
But they
killed him.
really captured the spirit of what wrestling is. I've seen some bad wrestling movies that you can tell they don't really watch wrestling, or they don't have the passion for wrestling. You can tell this was written by a lover of wrestling, because they really captured the essence of wrestling.
Yeah, of course. Sean Durkin, the writer and director of the movie himself, is actually a massive wrestling fan. So you can tell that passion, that love for the sport is there from the very get-go in the direction and the way that Sean brings this movie out, and the writing that's gone behind it as well.
And actually, the entire film was filmed in 6 weeks, which is incredible. Is there anything else that you? Oh, there's a particular scene that's just going to break your heart. I'm not gonna give you a spoiler. It's a fictional scene, but it's just so beautiful, and it really makes me cry. It's such a tragic story, and they've portrayed it in such a brilliant way. But one of the things that I loved, you saw some wrestling legends, because they really did wrestle with the Von Erichs, the Freebirds. There was a huge rivalry between the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, because the Freebirds are from Georgia, the Von Erichs are from Texas. There's that state-to-state banter, so it was great to see like Michael Hayes and the Freebirds, but also Ric Flair. Don't do it! So, if you know anything about Ric Flair, you'll know that he has this particular gimmick, and the guy who played him, his name is Aaron Dean Eisenberg, he really got Ric Flair, didn't he?
Fantastic.
He was
Absolutely nailed it.
incredible. Ric Flair is a legend in wrestling, and when we went to see the film, we were in a preview screening, and you could tell it was just wrestling fans in there. And so they're doing the on-camera stuff with Ric Flair, and everyone's waiting for it, and at the end of his little spiel, he did his
woo,
and everyone in the cinema kind of made this like audible noise, because we'd all been waiting for it, and it was just a little moment that as a wrestling fan I was like, oh yeah. So the budget for this,
I mean, you talked about the dark cloud that the world of professional wrestling is under at the moment because of he who shall not be named. But it was really, really impressive to see that this has done well at the box office.
Yes.
For a budget of just under $16 million. It's actually done, as of the 9th of February, it's grossed over $37 million.
Amazing.
So that is an incredible return.
I think it's the Zac Efron fans.
It might
It's
be.
the High School Musical, we're ride or die.
Ride or die with Zac Efron.
We're all in this together.
It's great to see that the Zac fans are following him.
He did such a good job. I'm so impressed. I really, he looks like a wrestler, he walks like a wrestler, it looks like it's painful to be him. And actually the film is almost told through his eyes. It sort of follows Kevin, possibly because he's the only surviving Von Erich brother. And you see him also having his own life, getting married to Lily James's character, Pam, and having children, and dealing with losing his brothers and feeling the curse that his father had always talked about.
But it ends on a positive note, because you get that scene where the family are together, and we get some actual
As positive as losing your entire family can be.
Yeah. But you get some authentic pictures at the end of the credits where it shows that all the family are now living together, or relatively close to each other on the same
And of course,
pieces of
Kevin's two sons have been performing in the AEW.
They have recently appeared on AEW alongside Orange Cassidy, and that was a bit of fun because we had Kevin Von Erich come down to the ring to save the day at the end of the match too.
With the Iron Claw.
With the Iron Claw, yeah.
So I think it's a fantastic movie. I cannot wait to see it again. I loved it. Though I didn't get bored. bored, I didn't want to look at my phone, I didn't go to the bathroom, which is unusual because I have bladder issues. It really captivated me. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It made me cry, it made me laugh. I really had that kind of nostalgic Forrest Gump-esque feel to it. Maybe also the music, because there was some great music in it.
Fantastic soundtrack.
Just some brilliant scenes as well. And I would give it a 4.5.
4.5. I think it was a really impressive piece of filmmaking from a technical standpoint, with the cinematography, the absolute on point with the wardrobe. Such an authentic sort of late 70s, early 80s feel to everything all the way through. Shot on location in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, which gave it that kind of southern atmosphere. The locations were spot on in terms of the
it has that. It's just got
used.
such a great look. Yeah, the stadiums were fantastic.
Yeah.
If you're a wrestling fan, I can guarantee you will love this. If you're not a wrestling fan, you will appreciate this for being a brilliant movie about a family. And I highly recommend that you go and see it. I think that's all we've got to say about it. So please let me know in the comment section. Did you see this film? Did you like this film? Are you a wrestling fan? What do you think is going to happen with the WWE? And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.